Good afternoon and welcome to the Turn It On training session around accessibility and learning tools. We're delivering this in association with Microsoft. It's nice to see so many people here. During the afternoon, if you've got any questions, you're welcome to pop them into the chat. If you're listening to this back, this recording will be available on the Turn It On YouTube channel. As we progress through this afternoon, one of the things we like to support you with is becoming a Microsoft Innovative Educator. You can do that by visiting the Microsoft Education Centre. It's an amazing resource for teachers, for your own professional development, or for whole school development if you've got a specific focus. You sign in and the little fingers are pointing in the top right hand corner. Once you're signed in, you can use either your school account that you're given or you can use a personal account. Later on in this session, we'll give you a code to redeem to cover accessibility tools, and that will give you some custom learning around the training we're going to cover today. But the Microsoft Education Centre is much more than that. If you've got a particular interest or you know that you've got a development focus, you can find individualized courses and you can then add them into your own learning, or you can subscribe to a learning pathway that will be made up from a bunch of courses. That will lead you to possibly wanting to become a Microsoft Innovative Educator expert. But today, from the code that we're going to give you to redeem, you'll get 1,000 points and you'll become a Microsoft Innovative Educator. Back to today's session, we'll cover that later. We are going to look at all sorts of accessibility tools from Microsoft. We'll focus a bit more on some rather than others. But as with all of these, you'll need to think and reflect what's right for you, where are your staff on their journey of development, and what's going to have the greatest impact in supporting either the pupils or the students you work with, or possibly the colleagues that you work with. But this is much wider. It could link into inclusivity in the governing body and the way that they meet and operate. It also may bring parents closer to you as a school as well. So there's lots of different uses about the learning tools that are available. Thinking about how accessible technology is, it really does support inclusivity and it fosters that level of independence. It covers many areas of the curriculum, whether it's tools that are specifically focused on English with reading and writing, or developing speech and language, right the way through to how they could help support mental health and well-being. And things such as visual impairment can be compensated for by using some of these tools. They are not the magic bullet or the answer to everything, but they are there to add to your arsenal of tools available to you to help you with making sure that you're making the most of the opportunities that are available to you in a digital world to complement what you've already got as tools in your physical world. There's somebody over at Microsoft called Mike Tholson and also Hector Minto, and both of them are really passionate about accessibility and learning. And one thing they do is they keep this periodic table, I like to call it, of learning tools and all the different applications in Microsoft. They keep it up to date, and it's available on the link that you can see at the bottom of the window. And it's growing all the time. And a lot of this has been driven by user requests. So use the feedback button, make requests for features that you'd like to see, and I will see this grow further still. This promoting independence in learning, whether it's learning, visual, hearing, mobility, neurodiversity, or mental health, is something that Microsoft are very keen on, and they're also not precious about. So you'll see this afternoon that the tools we're going to show you are available outside of Office 365. To bring it back to an inclusive classroom, we'll look at reading, writing, maths, and communication, but we'll start off with reading. And in reading, Microsoft often partners with schools, so this is very much research based in education, or organizations that work very closely with schools and colleges. So something that they did was they worked with Made by Dyslexia to develop something that is the jewel in the crown of the accessibility tools, and it's Immersive Reader. Now, Immersive Reader can do all sorts of things, and rather than look at them in the context of a presentation, we will break out and swap over and have a look at a real life version of Immersive Reader. So I'm just going to swap over for you. In the other web browser I've got, and I am going to use a web browser today, I'm using Microsoft Edge browser. You can use most leading browsers, whether it's Google Chrome or Firefox. One thing it doesn't work in is the old Internet Explorer browser. That's ended support, so don't try and use it, otherwise you're going to get a really frustrating experience. Here I've got some teams, so I think what I'll do is I'll go into a primary class team and have a look at what we've got going on today. Immersive Reader is absolutely everywhere in Office 365. It's in the Office suite, it's in Teams, it's in OneNote, it's in things like Sway and Forms. It's everywhere. So don't think just because I'm showing you this in the context of Teams, it's only available in Teams. It's not. It's available in lots of other places. We'll have a fictional scenario that as a teacher, we've used Teams to set an assignment. And in here, I've got some work around 2D shape in maths. So we'll have a look at that. If I go to the view that my pupils would see, it's very much like that. Now, it's quite busy. It's got a lot of text on screen. And for some people, the barrier to being successful may be that they can't read what their homework is. But don't fear. That's what Immersive Reader is for. The Immersive Reader tool looks a bit like a book with a speaker on it. And then you press that, it takes what is some very busy text and you can have it read. So one of the things that you can do is use the play button, and the play button is down here at the bottom, but you can change the speed that text is read. You can also choose the preference of voice. So I might swap that over to a male voice, and then when you're ready, you can press the play button. And what it will do is it will read those instructions to you that were there on the page, but you can move further still. In the top right hand corner, you've got some options to change the text. It's already on screen. It's being read. You've got text preferences, grammar options, and then finally on the right hand side there, reading preferences. If we have a look at text preferences first, one of the things you can change is the size of the text on screen. So you might be visually impaired and you need larger text. Well, that's not a problem. For your own personal experience in Immersive Reader, you can make the text bigger. It doesn't apply the changes to anyone else. It's just your view. You can have increased spacing between letters, or you can switch that off and it will then be more dense in the way that the words are displayed. And if Calibri, which is pretty traditional font, you need something more like handwriting, you could apply Comic Sans. But also, if you've got a visual impairment and you need a different coloured background and white isn't the thing that works for you, you may have green, or you could have yellow, and there's more options down there if you'd like to as well. So you can really tailor this to suit the learning experience that you need to make sure that you've got accessibility that suits you for the text that you're trying to read or understand. If we move across and we look at the grammar options, this is useful not just in something such as understanding your homework, but you could use it in other ways as well. So you can switch on breaking words into the syllables, and you can see now I've got the dots in between, so it helps me to break down the words so I can read it as the different syllables on screen. It can also be useful for things like spag work. So if you were asking pupils to find things like nouns or verbs in text, you could give them a Word document or a passage of text as a PDF, for instance, and then switch on Immersive Reader. And then you could say, well, I want to label up the nouns and the verbs, and they are suddenly there on screen, shown very clearly with a colour. If you need to change the colour, not a problem. Just use the drop-down box. And also, if you need to label what's going on, you can switch on labels, and then you can see there's an N for noun and a V for verb, and everything is there for you. You can switch all of that off again. It's up to you how much you have on and off, but for now I'm going to leave those on. And then moving across to reading preferences, what you can do is, if you want to have it read, but actually there's still way too much text on screen, you can apply a line focus. So it's like a filter. You can see the grayed out version of the text, it's either been read or the text to come. But now when you read, it will stay with the line that's being read in the line focus. You can always shift the line focus up and down using the arrows on the side, so you've got complete control over where it's going to scroll from. If you'd like to switch that off again, you can toggle that off there. There's also something called a picture dictionary in here. So if you want to use a visual representation of a word, you can click on that word, and there's very often a picture of what that word represents. So instructions in the sense of putting the table together there. There are visual interpretations of a visual dictionary for most words that are available in Immersive Reader. That's all free, and Immersive Reader is completely free. If you've got Office 365, there's nothing additional you need to buy here. You can use this to customize homework for EAL pupils, or if you're going to give parents a resource, they could change the settings themselves in Immersive Reader to read something that's written in English and translate it to another language. So I might want to choose a different language, and let's say that I have got some French parents that have decided to bring their children over to my school. I'm going to have that there, and now I can have either the translation by words. If I click on instructions again, I can find the English and the French word. So if I click on lessons, see that there, and down here I've got my picture dictionary the whole time. So everything that I've switched on is there, but it's only for me, and I can always switch it off, and that will be there. If you want to set this as a teacher, you can set it in advance, and then it will come into certain presets, but really it's up to you. You can also convert the whole document. So if you change that across there, for whichever language you've chosen, it's now converted my document into French. As a teacher, my workload is decreased massively because I can just prep this in French, in English, and it can be displayed in French. But although I've selected whole document there, I can toggle backwards and forwards at the top. So if I'm trying to develop my use of English as a pupil in my class, I can check what it is in French, but then try to develop independence with the English language by flipping back to the original version. So there's an awful lot of scope there to customize a document to suit whichever learning needs you have. And when you're finished with Immersive Reader, you can just jump back out, and then Immersive Reader itself is switched off, and you just find where you want it to be in another document. Now, as I said, Microsoft isn't precious about this technology, and something they've done is share it readily with other organizations. So I'm just going to jump back over to the presentation a moment. And in that presentation, what we will see is not just all of the applications in Office 365 that use it. So there's quite a few there. It's even in Outlook and things like Whiteboard if you use those in school. But partners that now have Immersive Reader built in. So if you subscribe to any platforms, maybe you use something like, let's say, Wakelet to catch ideas and display them on screen, or maybe you're using a product from Oxford University Press like MyMaths, all of those will have Immersive Reader built in. It'll be the same icon, the book with the speaker, and you can go ahead and use those. So the abundance of technology there it's really astounding. But something else that's really useful that links with Immersive Reader is an app that's free from Microsoft called Office Lens. I think it's easiest to show you a demonstration of Office Lens. It can go on Android, it can go on iOS, and once you've got it on, you can hold it over the top of a document and it will recognize that document. It will capture it. It can do language translation, but it also will then apply the settings that you have available in Immersive Reader, or you can send it to your OneDrive and you can get it back on screen. So as a teacher, you might use you might use Immersive Reader for going around the classroom. You may use it as a mobile projector almost to get what's happening at desks around the classroom up onto the screen to share good practice or share ideas or stimulate a plenary or a class discussion. I'm just going to show you the video next. So you hold Immersive Reader over a book. What it will do is you can capture that. It can then do multiple things. So it's got OCR built in, so it can capture it as text. So there's the OCR representation of the text. It can read it to you, and there's the same Immersive Reader tools that we've been looking at with grammar settings and reading settings. You can toggle on those nouns and syllables, and then suddenly that text that was in a book is not just captured in written form, but it's also then adapted to suit learning needs at the same time. So very, very powerful tool to have in your hand, and also as a teacher. And additionally, supporting the language needs of different pupils you've got in class. You can additionally use something called PowerPoint Live, and PowerPoint Live, along with Translator, will allow you to get subtitles. So Translator is an app that's available. You can get it from microsofttranslator.com, and in there you can either host a discussion and you can then have a join code. If somebody enters that join code into things like OneNote or PowerPoint, what they can do is then have the transcript appearing on screen, and if you are speaking in English, then they can have a transcript coming up in their own language. So it's really important to think of PowerPoint, translator and translation tools and Teams as one big happy family. Immersive Reader is the thing that underpins all of those. And if you're recording videos of maybe the transcripts along with the video, it will then go into your stream. Stream is that little pink arrow in the bottom right hand corner of this, and it can build up as a library of resources that you've got available to then either share again in Teams or share with the wider staff in schools. So I've seen a lot of schools using that quite successfully to record versions of lessons and then talk about pedagogical good practice and how to improve standards across the whole school. Something else that's really useful is to look at how these tools can be used in writing. We won't show these too much today, but there's various features in Word, such as being able to change the color backgrounds, but also there is Immersive Reader built there right into Words. You can have things like suggestions on for spelling corrections that will help you with ideas. You can also use it to convert languages, so what you've typed in one language in Word can be translated via dictionary or dictation straight away there in Word. There's up to 75 languages now as of October 2018, and they've been maintained moving forwards in Windows 10. If you want to find the accessibility options in Windows 10, press the start menu in the bottom left-hand corner, click the little gear on the left, and then you will search for accessibility, and it will give you the options, things like typing, reading, and writing, and so forth. So a lot of that is built into Windows 10 as well as Office 365. Microsoft hasn't overlooked the maths elements of accessibility tools, and there is a maths tool. It's in OneNote. It's also available in Teams, and the maths tool itself is a really powerful tool. You can either build equations with it as the animation you're seeing there on screen, or what you can do, you can take calculations you've digitally inked onto your board or onto your OneNote or onto the screen of your laptop, and what you can do is you can use a maths tool to convert them and make sense of them. The maths tool, I would say, better suits Key Stage 2 and upwards, but I have seen it used very simplistically with Year 1s and Key Stage 1s in certain circumstances, but you know the pupils in your class and you know when it would be right to do so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap over from the screen that I'm sharing and jump back into the web browser to show you the maths tool quickly. Just swap over. So going back into our Teams. So what we've got here is the same assignments that we were using before, but we've opened up one of our assignments in OneNote. So here is an example of something that I've been prepping as a teacher. So this is from one of my class teams. I'm going to go to maths and I've organized my sections by subject. And here is something I've digitally inked onto the board previously. So if I go over to Class Notebook, and in Class Notebook, I've got certain tools that are going to help. So I'm going to highlight the digital inked version I've written on the board there, and I've now got that already sorted. If I go to the maths tool, it will come out from the right hand side and it recognizes my calculation. If you get something that isn't interpreted correctly, so there's an operation that's incorrect or a digit that's incorrect, you can always use fix it. But then the beauty here is that you can do this yourself, or you can teach pupils to be independent. You might want to evaluate what's the answer. So we click on evaluate and then we can show the steps in learning. And if we scroll down, there's the Immersive Reader icon again, so I can have that read to me. So if my literacy levels are too low, I can make sure that that's something that's sorted there. And then in the maths tool, you can get it to auto-generate quizzes, and those quizzes will be based on the calculation above. So you can create more materials for them to use during a lesson. And just like before, there's Immersive Reader again to have it read. So if you're doing maths and actually access to English is the barrier to being successful in maths, it doesn't have to be. Immersive Reader is there. But for you as a teacher, again, workloads are cut down because it's taken the calculations as an example, and then you can choose as many answers as you want, and it will create them, and then they can submit from the way they've answered them there. And if they don't know the answer, what you could do if it's in something like OneNote Class Notebook, you could say, if you've struggled with these calculations and you've got more than half wrong, please visit this website. So you could be working with an intervention group where the other pupils that are able to be more independent could then take the quiz that you've generated, they can have a go at it, and then they can go away and check their own errors in their calculations and how they might successfully get to an answer. So the maths tool is another extremely useful tool to have there. I'm going to swap back to the presentation a moment. So with OneNote, as I've said, there are various digital inking options available for you inking your maths in, and then as you can see there from the example, that the maths assistant or the maths tool will convert them. If you're in a secondary, it can go even further still. So if you're using algebraic equations, you can use it for graphing. There is a dedicated graphing tool that you can download in Windows 10. It also works on other applications. So there's one for iPad. It's also in the Android store for Google as well. So there's lots of different ways that you can make use of that tool. The Math Solver tool, I think one of the biggest saving graces for me is the ability as a teacher in the middle of a lesson to generate some more questions on a practice quiz and not have to worry about suddenly trying to answer those for my pupils that I'm working with, that answers it itself. I'm going to move into communication as the next area, and communication can be something that's quite key to practice. It doesn't naturally come, something that pupils have to work on. So in PowerPoint, there are other tools that are there, and one of those tools is Presenter Coach. And I'm going to swap back over to the web browser again and show you just how Presenter Coach works. As with a lot of these tools, you either need to be using the desktop version of Office 365, which is free if you've got Office 365 for your school, or be using the installed version of Office. Now you need to have Office 2019 or Office 2021, which came out recently, and those will have the features that I'm showing you now. If you haven't got those installed, then it's absolutely fine. What you can do is you can use the web version anyway, and the web version will have all of the technology that you're wanting to use. So I am going to get rid of my OneNote class notebook. I think I'll close that one down, and I am going to go over here into a fictional meeting that I've got. So this slide deck I'll be using in my staff meeting. If you go to the slideshow part of the ribbon, there's Present Live, which is what we said we can use with our translator tool. We talked about that earlier. But what I'm going to show you now is Rehearse with Coach. It's Presenter Coach. So if I click Rehearse with Coach and I let that load up, what I get on the side of the meeting window now is a little box, and it says, do you want to start rehearsing? You can either see real-time feedback, but if that's off-putting and it's going to detract from your presentation, you can untick that box. But I do find it quite useful to get some feedback as we go along. So I'm going to press start rehearsing. So down in the bottom corner, I've got my presenter coach listening to me. It's already picked up that I said more than once. So welcome to our staff meeting today. It's good to have so many of you here. What we're going to cover during today's session is look at some school policies. We're going to have a look at the associated processes, and if we get time, we can discuss any other business. With the policies, we need to do an annual review, and in that annual review, it's going to have to cover a lot of ground, so I'm going to have to speed up and go quite quickly. In the annual review, there might be some areas we're not quite sure about, so you can feed back, and you can see that the presenter coach has picked up, or I might go to really study. There are some updates, but those updates are a little bit few and far between. So therefore, we are going to have to fill the gap. And slow delivery is just so boring for everyone. But next meeting, don't fear, we are going to have some whole school improvement ideas. We'll talk about the school production, and we've got a session on staff wellbeing. When you finish your presentation, Presenter Coach will finish automatically, and then on screen, you will get some feedback. It's good for you as a professional, but it's even better for pupils that are practicing presentations. It tells you if you've used too many fillers, you've used and too many times, so it's something to be mindful of and try not to use those. But it tells me that I haven't used repetitive language too much. You can get your average pace over time, so you're looking for a nice steady pace or something to have enthusiasm, and your pitch, and it gives you some feedback about your originality. This feature is still in preview, but people fed back, they find it really useful, and also that pupils find it useful when they're using it too. So Presenter Coach is something that's extremely powerful for you to take pressure away from listening to pupils or students practicing their presentations. That can be quite onerous for you as a teacher to find time to do all of that, and it's something that frees up time for you to do other things. I'm going to come back to the translator tool to finish off. So I'm just going to swap screens again and come back over to the other screen, and on that presenter screen I will show you exactly how translator works. It's just syncing up now, so having a little think about it. Remember, if you've got any questions, you can always pop those into the chat and I'll pick them up from there. I'm just going to come back over and present that to you. So as you can see, this is an app version of Translator, but you arrive and you've got two options. You sign in with your Microsoft account and you can either be the person leading the meeting, or as you can see from the QR code on screen, you can join via QR code or a code. It's really useful whether you are holding a face-to-face meeting with parents and they aren't natively English speakers, or you might be having a meeting over a video platform such as Teams. But what you could do is send the person the code, and if they pop the code in, it will automatically join them into Translator. They can choose their language, and you can have a discussion in English. They can have a discussion in their language. It will convert between the two languages each way, and at the end of it, you can have a transcript. And as a school and as the person joining the meeting, you can get a copy of that transcript, and you can keep it as evidence of what was discussed. It also allows you to have live captions for things like PowerPoints, so that in a lesson you could be talking as a teacher in English, but you might have a pupil with a set of headphones on a laptop and they can be getting translations in their language. The translator is absolutely free. It can be downloaded also as a dedicated app on your Windows 10 laptop, but it's available as an app as well. And if you go to the app launcher in Office 365, you will find it in the full apps list there as well. So there's lots of different ways that you can go about using that technology. It's got 63 text languages at the moment, and it's got 10 different speech languages, but that's growing all the time. And the way that Microsoft picks the different languages to develop is by feedback and requests. So if you know you've got a real need to have a particular language, use the feedback button in Translator. And as I've said before, it's available on all different sorts of devices. So it doesn't have to be just because somebody doesn't have a Windows laptop, they can't use Translator. Yes, they can, either in the web browser on their device or in the dedicated app as well. What we've got in the presentation are some links to Microsoft Education Center courses. One there on getting started with Immersive Reader. There's another one there on the maths tool, and there's another one on Presenter Coach. Really good, informative CPD in the Microsoft Education Center. It will help you a great deal if a lot of the concepts we've introduced to you today are quite new. Now, I said that at the beginning of this, we were going to offer you the chance to become a Microsoft Innovative Educator, or an MIE, which is the first step in using the Microsoft Education Center. And you can see at the bottom of the screen there that there's a code to redeem. Just so it's really clear for you, I'll move on to the next slide. Once you're signed into the Microsoft Education Center, where you can see where I've got the initials of the person, LA, if I press the initials, a little box will pop out. I can press redeem code, and then using the code that's there on screen, you can then type that in. If you would like a copy of that code, and rather than trying to copy it off the screen, I will go grab that code and I'll pop it into the chat for you. If you're watching this back as a recording, you can redeem that code at any point, and if you then pop it into the Microsoft Education Center when you're signed in, you'll be able to then take that and get the accreditation of 1,000 points, and that's what you need, is the equivalent of 1,000 points to be able to then get accreditation to be an MIE, and that will be instant. So the code that you need to redeem is there in chat, and the link, as I said, for the Microsoft Education Center you can find from elsewhere. On as an organization, we have quite a big social media presence. We regularly tweet on Twitter. We've got our own website, which is www.turniton.co.uk. If you want to know what sort of events we're hosting, you can find it on our dedicated events page on our website as well. There's various people from Microsoft that are good to follow. Jen King from the UK Education team. I've mentioned Mike Tholson. He's forever posting really useful videos and suggestions. If you do want to contact Turn It On, you can email us at office@turniton.co.uk. And we not only provide training such as today, but we've got everything that you could need for education IT. We deliver on-site IT support. We've got MIS support. We can deliver projects through project management. And we also have a dedicated GDPR team. So if you are interested in any of the other services from Turnitin, feel free to get hold of us. So that only leaves me to say thank you very much for joining today's presentation. It's been great having so many of you come along. And if anyone else wants to share in these experiences in the future, feel free to join up on the events page on the Turnitin website. And I look forward to seeing some of you again soon. Thank you very much.